All right. Good morning. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. Okay. No quote today. I apologize, folks. I was having a little bit of technical difficulty, and then I finally was just like, all right, let's do this. Let's get this show going. We're already behind. Don't like that. This may be the strangest episode that I have done out of like 340 some episodes. I'm going to validate someone's, well, I'm not really validating somebody's race or ethnicity. I'm just going to validate whether or not it's been talked about, whether or not they identified that way. So we're talking about Kamala Harris. Trump recently came out and said that, he questioned whether she was black. And this, like, now everybody's talking about it. We're all like, oh, she's really a black woman, or she really Indian woman. And there's like a video clip, and I don't have this particular clip, but there's a video clip where it's kind of comparing her to, I think it was Hillary Clinton, and it shows that she's kind of like code switching. That's where code switching, if you're not familiar with it, that is where somebody who might be maybe is black, when they're talking to black people, they will talk in a way that, I don't want to say the black accent because, I thought we were beyond that, but I guess we're not. I don't really know. But they basically speak to black people with a more understood black emphasis. And then when they speak to white people, they're all like, well, very proper grammar and all that good stuff, and they don't use any slang, and the the way that their voice fluctuates is different, right? So this is code switching. And so there's a clip where she's talking, a little bit more ebonics, if you will, and then it shows Hillary Clinton doing the kind of the same thing. And so this is that argument, like, okay, is she just pretending? And politicians do this. Okay, like if they go to the South, they don a Southern drawl, stuff like that. They'll stop at a gas station and they'll eat a hot dog, right? Pretend like, look at me, I'm eating this hot dog, right? And who was it that did that? There was someone that they ate a hot dog and everybody made fun of him because it was like, you don't even look like you've ever eaten a hot dog before, because they were like doing this weird. That was just a weird look. But anyway, so politicians do this kind of thing, right? Like they pretend to be someone that they may or may not be. Good morning to you, Libertarian JRT. Nice to see you. So they do this. It happens. And so the question is, like, I guess we got to decide, is Kamala black? Is she Indian? Has she identified in this way? Is she doing it just now in 2024 so that she can get the black vote, the Indian vote, the white woman vote, who all want to be like, we support the POCs, yay, right? Like, what's going on here? So we're going to dive into the record and take a look. But first, before we do that, let's play what Trump said so we get a little context of why we're having this conversation today.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
Give me a
literally
definition
the words.
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that?
So I just want to point out, like, it seems like he's being a little bit weird. Like, why don't you define it? And she's like, diversity, equity, inclusion. He's like, no, define it. And she's like, that is defining it. Actually, no, it's not. All you did was state what the acronyms mean. That's not defining it, right? Like, that doesn't tell you, what does it mean? What does diversity mean? What does equity mean? What does inclusion mean? And in the political realm, these words do mean something. And when you're taking a course, if you work for a company that's like, all right, you're going to do your DEI training now because we got to learn about all this stuff, right? They're going to define what those words mean. And she does not define it. is and as weird as this exchange may be, Trump is actually correct. Let's keep going.
Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you
I
would.
just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always
But you know
identified
what?
as a Black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
Black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do
And
you
I
believe
think
that she is a
somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some
I
Republicans
really
have
don't
said?
know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are.
Okay. That man is a trip. And that's not a supportive. I'm just saying, like, dude, this dude's wild. Like, I want you to just think about something. I'm 46. And when I was growing up in my, like, I don't know, since maybe 25, somewhere around there, like, there is no way in the world, say between ages of 25 and now, that I remember any time where a white man could question and say, but are you really Black, to somebody that basically everybody is saying is Black, right? Like right now, a lot of people are like, yeah, she's a Black woman. And so this is wild that he can actually be on national TV as a presidential candidate and questioning the ethnicity of his opponent. That's just crazy. But whatever, that's what it is. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at the record. Now, here's the cool thing about looking at the record in 2024. If it was 2000, it would be harder to go and dig things up because you would have to go to like the library and dig up resources. You would have to make copies, right? Like it would be a lot more challenging. I mean, there was stuff on the internet, but not nearly as much as there is now. Today, there is plenty, and the search features, the first search functionality is far better, and we're going to implement that. So let's take a look at so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through. I'm not going to read all the articles. I got a bunch of articles. So we're just going to look at like the headline or maybe a few words within the, within the story. And we're just going to walk through history, and we're going to see how was Kamala Harris understood in terms of her race and ethnicity, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look, and we're going to see if she Black. All right. Okay. So let's pull that up. Where do we got it here? All right. So here's our first article. Boom. Right there. All right. So here's an article from Politico titled Kamala Harris, Democrats Anti-Palin. And let me zoom in on it just a wee bit. There we go. This is from 2010. Oh, I'm going back. I'm going to reverse order. That's not what I meant to do. Let's back up. Let's go over here. I'm going to go chronologically, and I started at 2016 and I'm going to go down. Now, when I did my search, I went to Google and I literally just typed in Kamala Harris Black. And then I narrowed it down, the search results from 2000 to 2016. That's what I did. And then I did the same thing for African American, and I did the same thing for Indian. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to look. So this is 2016. Kamala Harris may become first Indian American senator in the US. All right, perfect. And this is March 2nd, 2016. All right, so we got a mark for the Indian American. Okay, now in the article it might go through and clarify more, but we're just trying to get an idea, a sense of what was said about her in the past. All right, so then we go to the next article. This is from NBC News. Kamala Harris's Senate bid excites California's Indian Americans. Comprising a significant acting voting bloc in California, Indian Americans are already excited about Kamala Harris's Senate bid. This is in January of 2015. Okay. All right, let's go on. Next one. All right, here we are. This is from the Indian Express. Barack Obama calls Indian American Kamala Harris best looking AG, creates a stir. Obama joins a long list of figures who can't let attractive women's looks go without comment. All right. Well, it's a long list of men, but whatever. All right. So then it goes through and it talks about, you know, but that was actual news. There was a lot of news actually. When you go back and you look, there was a lot of news apparently. Two things about that regarding Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. Number one, that he complimented her looks. And then number two, a lot of people were calling her the female Barack Obama. So they were calling her the female version of Obama. All right. So this is from 2013. Right. So this is April of 2013. All right. So then we move on. All right. So we've got the New York Times. Right. And it says Harris out on a limb on mortgage settlement. Okay. What does that mean? All right. So this is from 2012. And we see 4 years ago when most of the Democratic Party establishment stood firmly behind Hillary Rodham Clinton, Kamala D. Harris. Then San Francisco's district attorney spent a winter weekend in Ohio stumping for Barack Obama. All right, here's where it gets it. When she ran for attorney general 2 years later, the mixed race Ms. Harris, her mother is Indian, her father Jamaican American, drew frequent comparisons to Mr. Obama as a rare candidate who inspired young people and ethnic minorities, often alienated from the political process. All right. So in 2012, the New York Times, second paragraph in, identifies that she's not only black, but also Indian. All right. Checkmate, check mark there. What do we got here? This is from the Stanford lawyer. California Attorney General Kamala Harris discusses Stanford Law Policy Seminar on Recidivism and Crime Prevention 2011. And then this one, I think it was buried a little bit deeper in here. Let me see if I can scan. I probably should have highlighted. Oh, I did actually highlight. So here we are. Harris achieved, let me zoom in a little bit there. Harris achieved a number of firsts when she was sworn in as Attorney General of California in January of this year, the state's first African-American woman and the nation's first Indian American to hold the job. Okay. She may also be the first attorney general to not only seek the scholarly wisdom of academics, but go one step further, collaborating to establish a course to study key challenges facing. Okay. All right. So back in 2011. Yeah. 2011. So I saw 2013. That's referencing a future date. So back in 2011, she's identified by the Stanford lawyer as both African American and Indian. All right. Continuing down the line. Kamala Harris, the female Barack Obama. This is what I was telling you about. San Francisco DA trained illegal immigrants for jobs they couldn't legally hold. Okay, this one actually is just a bonus one I threw in there just for the fun of that particular sub headline. I thought that was kind of amusing given the conversations lately today, right? She trained illegal immigrants for jobs they couldn't legally hold. Ah, that's interesting. And that's from ABC News. So maybe I'll throw this one in the show notes and everybody can run with that one. This actually looks like it's pertinent information because, to be honest with you, someone's race or ethnicity is simply not relevant to the job. So, but whatever, this is where we are. So we're evaluating statements made. All right. So that was a little bonus. All right. So that was a lot about Indian stuff, right? So here's from the website Mixed Chicks. Mixed Chicks Black History Month Person of Distinction, Kamala Harris. And you can probably see right here, it's Black History Month 2017. So this is 2017. And they have given her, it says it's Black History Month. And we're all about celebrating pioneers, activists, visionaries, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have worked hard to push the African-American community forward with their contributions. Today's Black History Month Person of Distinction is U.S. Senator of California, Kamala Harris. So the Mixed Chicks, they were like, hey, she's so black, she can be the Black History Person of the Month. Okay. All right. So then we continue on. We got a couple more articles here. We're just going to go right on through them here. Meet Kamala Harris, the second Black woman elected to the U.S. Senate. This is from NBC News. Kamala Harris, California's 32nd Attorney General, made history tonight as only the second Black woman to serve in the U.S. Senate. This is an article from 2016. Last article on the list here. This is the one I accidentally started with. Politico, Kamala Harris, Democrats anti-Palin. This is from 2010. Okay. So let's see here. Where are we? Okay. At first glance, the president and Harris may have much in common, both because they're comparing her to Barack Obama. Both are mixed race children of immigrants raised by a single mother. Both are eloquent, telegenic, big city lawyers with strong liberal credentials who catapulted from relative obscurity to the national stage. And like the first African American president, Harris has broken a long standing barrier. She is California's first African American attorney general and the first woman to hold the office. So, Politico, back in 2010, they're identifying her as African American. So it seems like in the media, that it seems like she's being touted as both black and or African American, if you prefer, and Indian. Now, the real question here that I had when I watched that clip is, well, wait a minute, did she necessarily pretend that she was more one than the other and then switch later on when it became convenient? Or as Trump says, she was Indian all this time and then all of a sudden she decides she's black. Well, the best way to do that would be to really dig in and see exactly what she said and maybe look at individual years. But I'm not going to do that kind of research. But luckily, we have some audio clips that are some media clips that'll help settle this question a little bit. Right? So let me play this first clip here. So this one is in 2016 and this is regarding her being Indian. So let's go ahead and play this really quickly, and then we will see. And then I have one more, and I think we will settle this debate once and for all.
California's Kamala Harris is the first Indian American U.S. Senator. The state attorney general took on another Democrat, Loretta Sanchez, for the seat. It was the first time a Republican wasn't on California's general election ballot in more than a century. Though her win is historic, it's not really a surprise. Polls showed Harris leading by double digits heading into Election Day. And she received more than 40% of the vote in California's primary. Harris is a rising star in the party. Her name came up both as a possible VP pick for Hillary Clinton and as a potential successor to Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. For Newsy, I'm Eugene Daniels.
All right. So in 2016, they identify her clearly as Indian American. And then what was really interesting is they point out that she is a rising star in the Democratic Party. So almost 10 years ago, she was identified as a rising star. Furthermore, she, they point out, and I didn't realize this until I saw this video clip, but apparently her name was on a list to be the VP pick for then Hillary Clinton, who was running for president, and then also as a successor to Antonin Scalia because she is a lawyer. Now that's kind of interesting. Like she could have been on our Supreme Court. Imagine that. Now I don't know. I mean, now when I say she could have been, I mean only in terms of there was that possibility. Like how strong of a possibility it is, I couldn't even begin to speak to that. Now, this last clip, I think really settles what Trump said. I think it really just lays it out. And it determines whether he's being truthful or not. Now, remember, what he said was she was Indian all this time and then all of a sudden decided to be black. And he's like, I didn't even know she was black. Okay, maybe, but we're going to find out. I could have probably just done the show on this one clip, but I figured, you know what? Let's dive in and let's see what people like, how people were describing Kamala Harris over the years. And it appears they've been describing her in both ways. So let's see how she has identified herself. So this comes from 2006. This is from the State of the Black Union in 2006, and it was like a multi-day event. And this one was a panel of what they call emerging leaders, and this is in February of 2006. So let's see what we have here.
Madam DA, back to the question I posed earlier. I'm wondering whether or not with these kinds of numbers, it's a challenge to reform the criminal justice system, to keep our people out of it, a challenge. That's why it's one of the top 10 issues. That's why it's in this covenant document. But these numbers don't inspire hope necessarily. that there are going to be enough of us around in the coming months and years, certainly years, to implement this covenant the way these numbers are going.
The covenant, first of all, Tavis, I want to thank you for what you've done bringing us together and convening us. We've had a lot of time waiting to come out to talk with each other and bond, and it's an incredible group. The criminal justice system is not working for the African American community. I can tell you as the chief law enforcement officer for a major city in this country that it is not working. We see that in the statistics that you've outlined. 2 million people are in the prison system in this country. Over 40% are African American, in spite of the fact that we only constitute 13% of the general population. It's not working. It's not working when we recognize that African American men, the leading cause of their death is homicide. We are overly represented both as victims and as defendants and
We are overly represented.
as witnesses. Our communities suffer because our babies
Our communities suffer.
hear the gunfire every night. So the 7-year-old has post-traumatic stress disorder and cannot go to school the next day and learn. The criminal justice system is not working for us.
Us.
What I think we have failed to do as a community,
We have failed to do as a community.
however, is own this issue of law enforcement. We talk about these statistics in the context always of it is unfair, it's morally incorrect. Maybe we have learned that from the church. It is morally incorrect, but nobody cares about that. You can look at Katrina. Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young Black and brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is
What I suggest we do as African Americans. Interesting. Now, mind you, she's at a 2006 event that was titled, what was the title again? State of the Black Union. And this is the panel of emerging leaders. That's the last few seconds.
own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us, because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement.
Okay. So I think that video alone settles whether or not Kamala Harris just out of nowhere decided to be Black. No. She has been Black. She has identified as Black and personally identified, not just described as Black. She has personally identified as Black since as early as 2006, probably earlier because she did go to a Black college. And so the college that she went to would have been before this 2006 event. So over the years, the media has portrayed her in both lights, right? As Indian and as African American. And we can see that this video, and there's another video floating around where she's with an Indian person and they're like doing a cooking show or something like that. And Kamala Harris is like, yeah, you look like one half of my family or something like that. And people are like, yeah, but see, she was really identifying as Indian. No, she's identified as both, as you might expect, because if her mother was from India and her dad was from Jamaica, then it would make sense that she would identify as both, particularly if her parents maintain some relationship with their cultural heritage. And so I don't see a problem with her identifying as Black one moment, maybe Indian the next moment. Now, whether she should be code switching, well, as you saw in that clip in 2006, full of Black people, she wasn't talking so-called Black. She was talking with just standard grammar, professional, right? Like no slang of any kind that might be attributed to the Black community. Nope, she wasn't. There was no code switching there. The only thing that she did was use words like us and we and our, right, to identify that she is part of the group. And she clearly was part of the group because she was invited by somebody, whoever the host was, whoever was running the show. They invited her to come out and speak as a DA who identifies and is an African of African American descent, a Black woman. And we see that Obama thought she was pretty hot too, right? Take that wherever you want to go with it. I'm not going there. But the point here being, what Trump said is just simply not true. Now, maybe he didn't know it, Okay, that doesn't mean anything. I don't know a lot of things. So what? But in this particular case, I would say if you didn't know that somebody has been identifying as Black, maybe you shouldn't have said anything. Now, why is all of this important? Well, here's why. If you underestimate your opponent, you may lose. And I'm starting to get the feeling that Donald Trump is underestimating his opponent. I mean, she was described as a rising star. People were talking about having her as the VP pick for Hillary Clinton. They were talking about, hey, maybe she should be the one to replace Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. She was a DA, then she was the AG, now she's the vice president. Now she's running for president. I mean, look, folks, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see that she kind of is a rising star still, whether you agree she should be or not. And since I can answer this question of, is she a DEI hire? I'm going to say, no, she's not. Now, how can I? Well, based on all the evidence that we presented, she's not really, unless she's always been a DEI hire. Now, it's possible that in this particular political climate, they said, who is our best person of color that we can get on the ballot against this guy, right? But mind you, she has been rising. She has been engaged in the political realm for quite a while. This is not new territory for her. So therefore, it's not like they went and they just plucked out any old Black person that they could find. They went and found somebody that has a record that they can work with. And again, whether you agree that she's fit for the job or not, she has a political record. And effectively, that's in some ways of enough importance. So I would caution Republicans out there, if you don't want to lose to Kamala Harris, I would caution you to reach out to all your people and make noise and let Trump know that he needs to knock it off, because at this trajectory, I'm going to say it's not a guaranteed win. And I saw something the other day, and I wish I remembered where it was from. I don't know if I read it or if I saw it, but basically somebody was making this point that, you know what? I do remember. I think it was from Joe Rogan. He had Michael Malice on his show, and Joe Rogan was saying, I think that Kamala Harris is going to win. I believe Michael Malice disagreed. And Joe Rogan made this point. He said, after Trump was shot, it really seemed like a big deal. That's all we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about gun, because every time somebody gets shot, what happens to all the anti-gunners? They rush to tell us all the statistics that they have. They rush to talk about how, the political rhetoric, leads to this kind of violence, all this good stuff, right? Like that's all they want to talk about, guns and violence and how we need to eradicate it. But they didn't do that this time. The conversation actually diminished pretty quickly. And this was Joe Rogan's point. He said, instead of talking about it endlessly and having every single person on to talk about gun violence, they just shifted the conversation now to Kamala Harris, and pretty much comparatively are ignoring the gun issue, which is out of the ordinary for them. And he said they basically memory hold this in a sense. Like it's not wall-to-wall coverage about the president getting shot. And you would have thought that the president being shot would still, even today, be wall-to-wall coverage. And it isn't. And now the conversation is about Kamala Harris. Even Trump is talking about her. You want to talk about an Overton window? They've shifted the Overton window from the issue of Trump being shot, which his supporters could say, yeah, this is why we need him, blah, blah, blah. And they could, do all their hurrays and make all their arguments of why that makes him more fit. But they've shifted that window of what we're talking about from talking about Trump being shot to now Kamala Harris. And it doesn't matter that they're talking about whether she's Black enough or Indian enough or how she's identified. We're talking about her. I'm talking about her because that's what was kind of popular. And I was curious. I was like, well, what does the history show? Right? Oh, I did forget to show one thing. I want to show it just because I put the work in. So I want to show it one more time. So So I would caution you. I would caution you that if you, and again, I'm out for Chase Oliver, Libertarian candidate. So whether or not, like, I want both Trump and Kamala Harris to lose. I want Harris and Trump to both lose. Now the likelihood, I get it. I know where we stand. I'm not a fool. Okay. But if you are a Republican, I suggest you figure out how to get that conversation back to your guy. Otherwise, you may be in trouble. All right, so let's take a look, because I was telling you about history and what we could do, and the history that I showed you was from Google. I went to Google and I just typed in certain terms, and then I dropped down the little menu that they have available, and I said narrow this to results that are between 2000 and 2016, because I didn't want to hear anything more recently. I wanted to go back in history, like really as far back as I could. There's plenty between 2016 and today that you can go look at. But I wanted to kind of go back, much earlier. And I did the same thing actually on Twitter. So let me pull up Twitter, and then we can take a look at what was said on Twitter, because I think it's also interesting. So here is Twitter. And this first one here. So this one is from, and these are not in chronological order of any way. So this is from somebody named the Black Informant, Indian American Kamala Harris, female Obama in making, and then it says report Hindustan Times. So here, this tweet identifies that she's Indian American. IG, let's see, here's Kamala Harris, and then it has the hashtag Indian, hashtag Jamaica, hashtag who is that mixed girl? I don't know. And then we got, this one's a really interesting one. Kamala Harris. This is her account from 2013, wearing my favorite traditional Indian pavadi. I'm not sure how you say that, right? Throwback Thursday. So this is her wearing some Indian garb. Here we go. AG Kamala Harris speaking at South LA Town Hall with California Legislative Black Caucus on significance of California Homeowner Bill of Rights. So this is a picture of her talking at a Black Legislative Caucus in 2012. So I showed you the one from 2016. Well, apparently she was also doing this in 2012. She was identifying Black. So more evidence that Trump is factually incorrect. Here's the Atlanta Black Star from 2015 under California's first Black Attorney General. State takes lead in criminal justice reform. A couple more. Imagine the situation for Senate in California where you have Kamala Harris, radical Black progressive, running against Loretta Sanchez, right? So in 2015, she was identified by somebody as the radical Black progressive. And this very last one here, personally, I think Obama made a comment to Kamala Harris as a nod to Black female beauty, though. And this was in 2013. So even random Twitter accounts were identifying her as Black and Indian going back over a decade, right? So it would be wise of people to not play this game, because it's not going to take a whole lot of effort for people to come out and say, well, what about this? And what about this and this and this and this and this? And there's a lot out there. And this kind of reinforces my point that she's not just some DEI hire that they grabbed out of the woodworks to say, here, America, you like Black women, right? You're not racist, right? Now they're still doing that. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's not as simple as just a random Black woman that they decided to trot out and get the Black vote. No, this is somebody with history, and history in the Black community, no less, because she's been at events that were designated to talk about Black issues with Black people. And she was presented as a Black person. Now, what I couldn't find is actually too many of those for Indian. So that was kind of interesting. Like, headlines will point out like, oh, she's Indian American. And maybe there's reason for that. Maybe that's not as big of a deal. Maybe there's fewer Indian voters that I don't really know. I can't speak to why, but it's very interesting that Trump said, hey, she's been pretending to be Indian all this time and now she wants to be Black, when it's actually quite the opposite. It seems like she's been, I don't want to say playing the race card as Black, but she's been identifying as Black for many years, been invited to Black events with Black people, on panels with other Black people. And then there's very little regarding her Indian heritage, although she does point that out too, because she's got a Twitter post from 2013 where she's like, hey, here's a picture of me as a baby wearing this Indian garb. So I'm, again, last time, going to reiterate this. Folks, beware, because this kind of nonsense is what could cost you the election. All right, folks, that's my show for today. Trying to make them shorter. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. I don't know if there's really much to be inspired there, really. I mean, I guess if you're a mixed race, you can, if you want to get in politics, then make sure that you identify as both relatively equally. That way, in 20, 30 years, when somebody wants to question it, you can go, no, no, no. We're going to go back and look at history. So I guess if that's kind of inspiring, I don't know. I don't know what else would be inspiring, but hope you at least found it informative. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, drop me a comment and let me know how I'm doing. Last but not least, I want you to remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you tomorrow. But for now, I'm out.